Step away from the camera. Now, I need your ID.
I'm in a public park filming ducks. That's legal. Am I being detained?
You're acting suspicious. Last chance.
ID!
No reasonable suspicion, no ID.
You touch me, this becomes a federal case.
Turn around.
You're making a career-ending mistake.
The man was Marcus Thorne. And for the last 25 years, Marcus had served as a senior media advisor for the United States Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. He was the man who crafted the press releases when federal indictments were handed down against corrupt mayors. He was the strategist who managed the optics for civil rights investigations into police departments across the Deep South. He didn't just know the law, he shaped how the American public understood it. And on this particular Tuesday, he was on vacation visiting his elderly mother and trying to capture footage of a rare migrating mallard he had spotted the day before. Before we get into the details of this infuriating encounter, I need you to do something for me. Go to the comments section right now and tell me where you are watching from. Are you in the US? The UK, Canada? Let me know. And if you believe that a badge is a heavy responsibility, not a license to bully, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You are going to want to see how this one ends. It was 10:30 in the morning. The air was crisp, typical for late October in the Low Country. Hampton Park was mostly empty, save for a few joggers and mothers pushing strollers. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that Marcus cherished after months of high-stress deadlines in the Beltway. He was dressed for comfort khaki cargo pants, a faded navy blue windbreaker, and a baseball cap pulled low to block the glare. He looked like any other middle-aged man enjoying a hobby. Marcus had his tripod set up on the grassy bank. He was tracking a pair of ducks gliding across the glassy surface of the water. He was breathing slowly, waiting for the perfect moment when the male would flap its wings, scattering water droplets into the sunlight. It was peaceful. It was innocent. It was perfectly legal. Then came the crunch of tires on gravel. Officer Kyle Braden pulled his patrol cruiser onto the grass, ignoring the "No Motorized Vehicles" sign. Braden was 29 years old with 3 years on the force. He was the kind of officer who wore his sunglasses on the back of his head and kept his hand resting on his service weapon even when ordering coffee. He had been bored that morning. The radio had been silent. When a call came in from a concerned citizen about a suspicious male loitering near the water, Braden had jumped on it. The dispatch notes were thin. No description of criminal activity, no weapons reported, just a neighbor who didn't recognize the black man standing near the edge of the park where the expensive colonial houses lined the street. Braden slammed his car door shut, the sound echoing across the water. The ducks Marcus had been filming took flight in a panic. Marcus sighed, stopped recording, and stood up straight. He didn't turn around immediately. He checked his camera lens, capped it, and waited. He knew the routine. He had seen the statistics. He had written the reports on the statistics. "Hey, you!" Braden shouted, closing the distance with long, aggressive strides. Marcus turned slowly. He kept his hands visible away from his pockets, resting them on top of his camera tripod. He saw the young officer approaching, chest puffed out, jaw set. Marcus saw the name tag, K. Braden. He saw the body camera blinking red. "Good. Can I help you, officer?" Marcus asked. His voice was a deep baritone, calm and resonant, the voice of a man who had briefed attorneys general. "Step away from the camera," Braden commanded, pointing a finger. "Keep your hands where I can see them." "My hands are right here, officer. I'm just taking pictures of the wildlife." "We got a call," Braden said, stopping 6 feet away. He bladed his stance, turning his body slightly to protect his gun side, a combat stance. "Suspicious person. Loitering. Possible casing of residential properties." Marcus looked at the houses, which were a good 200 yards away across a street and a line of oak trees. Then he looked back at Braden. "I'm in a public park, Officer Braden, filming ducks. That is neither suspicious nor illegal." "I'll be the judge of that," Braden snapped. "I need to see some ID." This was the moment, the fork in the road. Marcus could have just handed over his driver's license. He could have smiled, shucked, and jived and hoped the officer would let him go with a warning for a crime he didn't commit. But Marcus Thorne had spent a lifetime fighting for the principle that the Constitution applies to everyone everywhere, even in a park on a Tuesday morning. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming steel, "I am not required to provide identification unless you can articulate a reasonable suspicion that I have committed, am committing, or am about to commit a crime. Filming ducks does not meet that threshold." Braden blinked. He wasn't used to pushback. He was used to fear. "You're refusing a lawful order." "I am refusing an unlawful demand," Marcus corrected him. "Am I being detained, or am I free to go?" Officer Braden's face flushed a deep shade of red. In his 3 years on the force, he had developed a reputation. His fellow officers called him the Hammer behind his back, not as a compliment, but because to him every citizen was a nail. He didn't like being quoted the law. He especially didn't like being quoted the law by a black man in a windbreaker who looked like he should be mowing a lawn, not lecturing a police officer. "Listen to me, pal." Braden stepped closer, invading Marcus's personal space. "We have a report of a suspect casing houses. You fit the description." "What description?" Marcus asked calmly. "Did the caller describe a male with a Canon 5D Mark IV and a tripod, or did they just say, 'black male'?" Braden ignored the question. "You're loitering. That's a crime." "Loitering requires intent to commit a crime or obstruct passage," Marcus countered effortlessly. "I am engaging in a constitutionally protected activity in a public forum. The First Amendment protects my right to record in public. The Fourth Amendment protects me from unreasonable seizure. You are currently 0 for 2. Braden's hand tightened on his duty belt. He looked around. The park was still mostly quiet, but a middle-aged couple walking a golden retriever had stopped on the path about 30 yards away. They were watching. Braden felt the pressure. He couldn't let this guy talk down to him. It would look weak. "I'm investigating a crime," Braden stated, his voice raising in volume. "And you are obstructing that investigation by refusing to identify yourself. In this state, that's an arrestable offense. South Carolina is not a stop-and-identify state unless there is a valid detention based on reasonable, articulable suspicion," Marcus said. He didn't shout. He didn't wave his arms. He spoke with the precision of a law professor. "You have no suspicion. You have a hunch based on a biased phone call. If you arrest me now, Officer Braden, you will lose qualified immunity." "Do you know what that means?" Braden sneered. "I know what the law is. You're a lawyer or something." "I work for the federal government," Marcus said. He didn't specify. He wanted to see if the officer would pause, would think, would use an ounce of discretion. "And I am telling you, for your own sake, you need to de-escalate this interaction immediately." "Don't tell me how to do my job," Braden yelled. He reached out and grabbed the camera tripod. "This is evidence. You're filming private homes." Marcus's hand shot out and firmly grasped the leg of the tripod. "Do not touch my property. I have not consented to a search or seizure. That camera contains no footage of private homes, only waterfowl. And even if it did, anything visible from a public space is fair game. Kilo v. United States, California vs. Kiraiolo. Look them up." "Let go of the camera," Braden shouted. "You let go," Marcus said. "You are escalating a consensual encounter into a civil rights violation." The couple with the dog was whispering now. The woman had pulled out her phone. She wasn't filming the officer. She was filming Marcus, likely thinking she was documenting a criminal being caught. Braden saw the phone and felt emboldened. The public was watching. He had to act. "That's it," Braden said. He released the tripod and unclipped the radio from his shoulder. "Dispatch, I have a non-compliant subject at Hampton Park, requesting backup." "You don't need backup, officer. You need a supervisor," Marcus said. "Call your sergeant. Get a white shirt down here. I'll wait." "You're not going to wait," Braden said. "You're going downtown. I'm done playing games with you." I haven't moved, Marcus said. I am standing right here. But I want to be very clear, if you put hands on me, if you place me in handcuffs without probable cause, you are crossing a line you cannot uncross. This isn't a threat. It is a fact. Braden laughed, a short, nervous bark of a sound. You think you're special. You think because you know some big words you can walk all over the police. You're just a guy in a park acting shady. I am a citizen exercising my rights, Marcus said. And you are a public servant abusing your authority. Turn around, Braden commanded, reaching for his handcuffs. For what crime? Marcus asked, not moving. Disorderly conduct, obstruction of justice, and resisting arrest. I am not resisting, Marcus said. I am verbally dissenting. There is a difference. City of Houston, Vara Hill. Verbal criticism of police officers is protected speech. Tell it to the judge, Braden said. He grabbed Marcus's left wrist and wrenched it behind his back with unnecessary force. A sharp pain shot up Marcus's shoulder, an old rotator cuff injury flaring up. Marcus winced but didn't pull away. He went limp, compliant but not cooperative. You are making a mistake, Marcus whispered, the pain evident in his voice. A career-ending mistake. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was loud in the morning air. Click, click, click. To Marcus, it was a familiar sound, one he had heard on audio recordings in dozens of excessive force cases he had reviewed over the decades. But feeling the cold steel against his own wrists was a different reality. It was dehumanizing. Spread your legs, Braden barked, kicking Marcus's ankles apart. He began a rough pat-down search, his hands moving aggressively over Marcus's pockets, the waistband of his pants down his legs. I do not consent to this search, Marcus stated clearly, directing his voice toward Braden's body camera. I am being searched against my will without probable cause. Shut up, Braden muttered. He pulled Marcus's wallet out of his back pocket and tossed it onto the hood of the patrol car. Then he grabbed the expensive Canon camera. He didn't collapse the tripod. He just dragged the whole rig toward the car. The legs of the tripod banged against the gravel. Careful with that, Marcus said. That lens costs more than your monthly salary. It's evidence now, Braden said, shoving the camera equipment into the back seat of the cruiser. Whatever is on that SD card is going to prove you were peeping. It will prove I like ducks, Marcus said dryly. And it will prove you are incompetent. Braden spun Marcus around and shoved him against the rear fender of the patrol car. The metal was hot from the sun. The couple with the dog had walked closer. The man, a retiree in a polo shirt, called out, Good job, officer. We've seen him lurking around here for 20 minutes. Marcus looked at the man. I was waiting for a bird to fly, sir. It's called photography. Don't talk to the witnesses, Braden shouted. He opened the rear door of the cruiser. Get in. Marcus had to bend awkwardly to get into the cage. He was 6'2", and with his hands cuffed behind his back, he had no balance. He stumbled slightly, and Braden used the opportunity to shove him the rest of the way in. Marcus's head bumped against the door frame, not hard enough to bleed, but hard enough to leave a bruise. Watch the head, Marcus said, settling onto the hard plastic seat. You should have thought of that before you decided to argue. Braden slammed the door shut. The interior of the car smelled of stale sweat and sanitizer. Through the wire mesh divider, Marcus watched Braden pick up the wallet from the hood. The officer flipped it open, glanced at the driver's license, and smirked. He didn't look deeper. He didn't check the other slots. He just threw the wallet onto the passenger seat and got behind the wheel. Marcus Thorne. Braden read the name aloud as he started the engine. Address in Chevy Chase, Maryland. You're a long way from home, Marcus. I'm visiting family, Marcus said. And I have federal standing. Federal standing? Braden laughed as he threw the car into reverse, spinning the tires slightly on the grass. What are you, a postal worker? A park ranger? I advise you to check the second flap of my wallet, Marcus said calmly, before you drive off. I've got your ID. That's all I need to book you. Braden pulled onto the road. You can tell your story to the magistrate. Officer Braden, Marcus said, his voice deadly serious. I am going to give you one last chance to save yourself. You are currently in violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. That is a federal felony. It carries a prison sentence. If you drive this car to the station, you are sealing your fate. Braden glanced in the rearview mirror. For a second, just a microsecond, he hesitated. The man in the back didn't sound like the usual suspects. He sounded educated, powerful, but Braden's ego was already too invested. He had the bad guy in cuffs. He had witnesses. He was doing his job. I'm shaking in my boots, Braden mocked. You sovereign citizens are all the same. Reciting codes you found on the internet, you think you know the law better than the police. In this specific instance, Marcus said, closing his eyes and leaning his head back against the seat. Yes, I absolutely do. The drive to the precinct took 15 minutes. Braden played country music on the radio loudly, likely to drown out any more lectures. Marcus remained silent. He was already drafting the affidavit in his head. He was memorizing the timestamps. He was noting that Braden was speeding, doing 55 in a 35 zone without lights or sirens. He was cataloging every single policy violation. When they pulled into the sally port of the police station, the heavy metal door rolled down behind them, sealing them in. The darkness of the garage felt final. Braden killed the engine. End of the line, Marcus, Braden said. No, Marcus replied softly. This is just the beginning. The precinct was busy. Phones were ringing, officers were walking briskly with paperwork, and the smell of old coffee permeated the air. Braden marched Marcus through the double doors, gripping his arm tightly. He wanted everyone to see. He had brought in a catch. They approached the booking desk. Sergeant Miller was on duty. Miller was 56 years old, a relic of the old school, but a man who had survived 25 years by being careful, fair, and observant. He had gray hair cropped close and reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He looked up from his computer as Braden approached. What do we have here, Braden? Miller asked, his voice gravelly. He looked at Marcus. He saw a man in expensive hiking clothes, calm, composed, not struggling. He saw the intelligent eyes watching everything. Miller's gut tightened. This didn't look like a vagrant. Disorderly obstruction and loitering, Braden announced proudly. Guy was casing houses over by the park, refused ID, refused to leave, got combative. I was not combative, Marcus said. I was articulate. Miller looked at Marcus, then back at Braden. Combative. Verbaling, Braden clarified. Argued with everything I said. Tried to tell me how to do my job. Miller sighed. He hated contempt of cop arrests. They were messy. They rarely stuck. Did you get ID? Yeah, eventually. Had to fish it out of his pocket after I cuffed him. Braden slapped Marcus's wallet onto the high counter. Out of state, Maryland. Miller picked up the wallet. It was high-quality, genuine leather worn smooth. He opened it. He saw the Maryland driver's license. Marcus Thorne. He typed the name into the system. Mr. Thorne, Miller said, looking over his glasses. You have any warrants? I do not, Marcus replied. I have a top-secret security clearance and a pristine record. Braden scoffed. Yeah, okay. And I'm the police commissioner. Miller froze. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He looked at Marcus again. Say again. Check the flip side of the wallet, Sergeant, Marcus said. Behind the credit cards. Miller frowned. He flipped the leather flap of the wallet. There was a secondary ID slot usually used for family photos or insurance cards, but this one held a laminate card with a holographic seal. Miller pulled it out. It was a U.S. government credential. Department of Justice, Senior Executive Service. The photo matched the man in front of him. Below the name in bold red letters, it read, Top Secret, SCI Clearance, and below that a badge number that was very, very low. Miller's mouth went dry. He knew what the DOJ was. He knew what the Civil Rights Division did. They ate departments like this for breakfast. Braden, Miller said, his voice barely a whisper. Yeah, Sarge. Start the paperwork. Braden, shut up, Miller hissed. He looked up at the young officer with eyes wide with panic. Where did you arrest him? Hampton Park. Like I said. What was he doing? Exactly. Filming. Just filming. He said it was ducks, but you arrested a senior advisor for the U.S. Department of Justice for filming ducks. Miller's voice rose to a shout on the last word. The squad room went silent. Two detectives at a nearby desk stopped talking. A clerk froze mid-step. Braden looked confused. Department of... what? Justice, you idiot. Miller slammed the credentials onto the counter. The feds, the people who prosecute police officers. Braden looked at the card. He looked at the seal. He looked at Marcus. The arrogance drained out of his face like water from a cracked bucket. He went pale. I thought it was fake, Braden stammered, though he hadn't even seen it. I told you to check, Marcus said. His voice echoed in the silent room. I told you to call a supervisor. I told you that you were making a mistake. Miller stood up. Take those cuffs off. Now. But the paperwork, Braden mumbled. There is no paperwork, Miller roared. Get the cuffs off him before we all get sued into the Stone Age. Braden fumbled for his keys. His hands were shaking. He dropped the keys, once picking them up with trembling fingers. He moved behind Marcus and unlocked the cuffs. Marcus brought his hands forward. He rubbed his wrists. There were red welts where the metal had dug in. He rotated his shoulder, wincing. I need a chair, Marcus said. And I need your watch commander, Captain Reynolds, I believe. Miller nodded vigorously. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Braden, give him a chair. Get him water. Don't say another word. Miller grabbed the phone and dialed a number. Captain, you need to come downstairs. Now. No, it can't wait. We have a situation. A catastrophic situation. Captain Reynolds arrived in the booking area 3 minutes later. He was a tall man, 50, with a military haircut and the tired eyes of a man who spent his life managing crises. He saw Marcus sitting in a plastic chair rubbing his wrists. He saw Braden standing in the corner looking like a child who had broken a priceless vase. He saw the federal credentials on the counter. Reynolds didn't ask Braden what happened. He walked straight to Marcus. Mr. Thorne, Reynolds said, extending a hand. I'm Captain Reynolds. I am incredibly sorry for this misunderstanding. Marcus didn't shake the hand. He looked at it, then up at Reynolds. This wasn't a misunderstanding, Captain. A misunderstanding is when you order a burger and get a salad. This was an unlawful deprivation of liberty, an assault, and a Fourth Amendment violation committed by an officer who evidently slept through his constitutional law training. Reynolds retracted his hand. He knew better than to argue. I understand you're upset. I am not upset, Marcus said calmly. I am litigious. There is a difference. Mr. Thorne, we can release you immediately. We will wipe the arrest record. It never happened. You can walk out of here right now. No, Marcus said. I'm not walking anywhere just yet. Not until I have assurances. Assurances. I want the body camera footage, Marcus said. I want Officer Braden's camera and the dash cam from his vehicle. I want the data pulled and preserved on a separate hard drive right now in front of me. I want a master copy burned to a disk for me to take. I can't do that, Reynolds said. That's internal police property. You'll have to file a FOIA request. Marcus leaned forward. Captain, let me explain how tomorrow is going to go. If I don't walk out of here with that footage, I am going to make one phone call to the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division. By noon tomorrow, this department will be swarming with FBI agents. They will seize your servers. They will seize your emails. They will open a pattern or practice investigation that will keep you in federal court for the next 10 years. Or you can give me the footage, I can sue the city civilly, and we can leave the Department of Justice out of it for the moment. Your choice. Reynolds stared at him. He knew who Marcus was now. He had Googled him upstairs. This wasn't a bluff. This was a man who had lunch with senators. Miller, Reynolds barked. Get the tech guy down here. Pull the footage. Yes, sir. Braden spoke up from the corner, his voice small. Captain, he was loitering. The witnesses? Shut your mouth, Braden, Reynolds said without turning around. Go to my office. Put your gun and your badge on my desk. You're on administrative leave effective immediately. But go, Reynolds shouted. Braden slinked away, his head down. The other officers in the room avoided his gaze. He was a dead man walking. 10 minutes later, a nervous IT technician came down with a laptop. He connected it to Braden's body camera docking station. Marcus watched the screen. He watched the upload bar. I want the audit trail too, Marcus said, to prove nothing was deleted. Yes, sir, the tech said. While they waited, Marcus stood up. I want my property returned, my camera, my tripod. If there is a scratch on that lens, I'm adding it to the claim. Miller ran out to the patrol car. He returned a moment later carrying the gear with both hands, treating it like a bomb that might explode. He set it gently on the counter. Marcus inspected it. He checked the lens. He checked the SD card. Everything seemed intact. The footage is ready, sir, the tech said, handing Marcus a USB drive. Marcus took it. He put it in his pocket. He looked at Reynolds. You have a problem in this department, Captain, Marcus said. Officer Braden didn't just wake up today and decide to violate the Constitution. He felt comfortable doing it. He felt empowered. That's on you. That's on your leadership. We will handle it, Reynolds said stiffly. The courts will handle it, Marcus corrected. I'll see you at the deposition. Marcus picked up his camera gear. He walked out of the station past the staring officers out the double doors and into the bright afternoon sun. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. He had one call to make. Hello, a voice answered. It was his personal attorney, a shark named David Sterling, who operated out of Atlanta. David, Marcus said, clear your schedule. I have a case for you. And it's a big one. The lawsuit was filed 4 days later. Thorne v. the City of Charleston, et al. It was 40 pages of blistering legal prose. It cited Terry v. Ohio, Delaware versus Prowse and a dozen other Supreme Court precedents. It accused Officer Braden of unlawful detainment, false arrest, excessive force, and malicious prosecution. It accused the city of failure to train and failure to supervise. But the real bomb dropped when Marcus released the footage. He didn't give it to the local news. He posted it on his own social media with a simple caption, "This is what happened to me. Imagine what happens to those who can't fight back." The video went viral in hours. The contrast was stark. The calm, articulate black man simply trying to film nature and the aggressive young white officer escalating the situation at every turn. The internet exploded. He tried to warn him. He literally cited the code. The moment the cop realizes he arrested a Fed, priceless. Why do they always hate cameras? The comment section was a firestorm. But it wasn't just internet noise. The video made it to CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. The phrase, "Do you know who I am?" was usually the mark of an entitled jerk. In this case, it was the righteous question of a man who actually held the power to fix the system. The Department of Justice officially announced an investigation 2 weeks later. It wasn't just about Marcus. Marcus had used his connections to pull the data. It turned out Braden had a history. He had 18 complaints in 3 years. excessive force, rude conduct, racial profiling. All of them had been dismissed by Internal Affairs as unfounded. Now the DOJ was reviewing all of them, and they were reviewing the supervisors who signed off on them. Captain Reynolds was forced into early retirement. The chief of police issued a public apology, but it was too little too late. Officer Kyle Braden was fired. The termination letter was swift and brutal. It cited gross incompetence, violation of civil rights, and conduct unbecoming. The police union, usually quick to defend their own, stayed silent. The video was indefensible. Braden tried to appeal, but his lawyer told him to save his money. He was done. The settlement negotiations with the city were short. The city attorney watched the video once, looked at the federal lawsuit, and asked, how much Marcus settled for $450,000. It wasn't about the money for him. He earned a good salary. He didn't buy a new car. He didn't go on a vacation. He took the check, endorsed it, and signed it over to a non-profit organization called the First Amendment Audit Project, a group that provided legal defense funds for citizens arrested for filming police. Use this, Marcus told the director of the nonprofit. Train people, buy them cameras, teach them the law. Make sure the next Kyle Braden thinks twice. 6 months later, Marcus returned to Hampton Park. It was spring now. The azaleas were in bloom, exploding in pinks and whites. The air was warm. Marcus set up his tripod in the exact same spot. He mounted his camera. He adjusted the focus. The ducks were there. A new generation of mallards paddling in the water. A police car rolled slowly down the path. It wasn't a sedan this time. It was a smaller cart used for park patrol. The officer driving was an older woman, black with a kind face. She saw Marcus. She saw the camera. She stopped the cart. Marcus tensed up. He instinctively reached for his phone to record audio. He watched her. The officer got out. She didn't put her hand on her gun. She walked over, slowly smiling. "Mr. Thorne?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "I'm Officer Williams," she said. "I just wanted to say, good morning." "Good morning, officer." She looked at the ducks. "Get any good shots today?" "A few," Marcus said. "Good," she said. She hesitated, then looked him in the eye. "We had a training session last week, mandatory, for the whole department. We watched your video. We spent 4 hours breaking down the case law you cited." Marcus nodded. And a lot of the younger guys, they didn't know. They thought respect was something you demanded, not something you earned. They're learning. It's slow, but they're learning." "That's good to hear," Marcus said. "I just wanted to thank you," she said, "for holding the line. It makes it easier for the good ones among us to do our jobs when the bad ones are cleared out." She tipped her hat. "You have a nice day, Mr. Thorne." "You too, officer." She got back in her cart and drove away. Marcus watched her go. He took a deep breath. The air tasted sweeter than it had 6 months ago. He looked back at the pond. The male mallard he had been trying to film for so long finally flapped its wings, rising up out of the water in a spray of diamonds. Marcus pressed the shutter. Click, click, click. He got the shot. The story of Marcus Thorne isn't just about one bad cop or one smart victim. It's about the fragility of our rights. We like to think that the Constitution is a shield that protects us automatically. But as Marcus proved, the Constitution is just paper, unless you know it, assert it, and are willing to fight for it. Marcus had advantages that most people don't. He had money, connections, education, and the literal badge of the federal government in his pocket. And he still ended up in handcuffs. He still got shoved into a cage. He still had his rights stripped away by a man with a gun and an ego. Think about that. If it can happen to a DOJ senior advisor, it can happen to your son. It can happen to your father. It can happen to you. Kyle Braden is now working construction in another state. He lost his career because he refused to listen. He lost his badge because he thought it made him a king. He learned the hard way that authority without accountability is just tyranny. Marcus Thorne is back in D.C. continuing his work, but he keeps that settlement check stub framed on his office wall. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. We need more officers like the one who stopped to say thank you. But until we have them, we need more citizens like Marcus Thorne. We need people who will pull out their cameras, who will ask, why, and who will not be intimidated into silence. So here is my question for you, and I want you to be honest in the comments below. If an officer demanded your ID when you knew you had done nothing wrong, would you have the courage to say no, or would you just comply to avoid the hassle? There is no wrong answer, but it's something we all need to think about. And do you think the $450,000 settlement was enough? Or should the money have come directly out of Officer Braden's pension? Let me know what you think justice looks like. Thank you for watching this story. If it opened your eyes, if it made you think, please share it with someone. Education is our best defense. Hit that like button to help this video spread, and subscribe if you want more stories about real people standing up to power. Until next time, know your rights and stay safe out there.